It's been a busy week for Utah football. They landed their potential backup quarterback in 2025, their potential wide receiver one, and more recruits. We're talking about what the latest transfer portal additions mean to Utah football on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If this is your first time tuning into our show, make sure you like and subscribe. Love interacting with all of you in the YouTube comments, as well as on social media, where you can follow our show on X at Locked On Utes. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is JT Wisterso, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Hope you all had a great Christmas and enjoying hopefully a long weekend and ready for some more college football. We got some bowl games, NFL action. We'll talk about that more later with FanDuel. But let's talk about some Utah football editions today, shall we? Utah has been busy. They didn't make any announcements on Christmas Day, thankfully, but even leading up to Christmas and even a couple days after, there's been constant news and additions that we have to cover. And I think the first place to start is the position that is just the most important. And as we saw last year, we were reminded of that painfully, how important the quarterback position is. And that is with the quarterback position. And that is Utah's newest addition to their quarterback room, as they landed transfer quarterback from Oklahoma. That's right, an SEC transfer, Brandon Zurbrugg. And Zurbrugg is a guy that I think has immense potential. 6'2" freshman, 207 pounds. He was a guy who was a consensus 3-star recruit, rated the number 18th dual threat quarterback prospect in his class by ESPN Rivals, and as the number 30th quarterback by On3, and number 66 by 24/7 Sports, regarded as the number 15th ranked recruit in Ohio by On3, which I like because Ohio is, I think, a top 3 high school football state. I'd say no overall. Definitely top 10, maybe even top 5 if you look at the history of what they've produced. So Brandon's a guy that I think has immense potential. Now, I think that is the one thing that scares me a little bit when we're talking about backup quarterback, is we're doing exactly what we did with Isaac Wilson again. And obviously he is not Isaac Wilson, but with how burned we were by a quarterback who didn't have a lot of experience last year stepping onto the field, it's hard to not be a little nervous about a guy like Zurbrugg, who is just going to be stepping onto the field. He didn't play at all at Oklahoma last year, so redshirted, and we know they had their quarterback issues too. So I'm not saying like, hey, that's nothing against him that he didn't play in a bad quarterback room. And I know Jackson Arnold's now the starter at Auburn, so we'll see how that all goes, I guess. But yeah, I this is definitely a move that excites me because I think he has good upside. I mean, he was an 3-star recruit, right? And an extremely productive player when you look at it. In 2023, Northeast Ohio Inland Division District 3 Player of the Year, where he passed for 2,322 yards, 26 touchdowns, and rushed for 1,038 yards and 13 touchdowns, while leading the Alliance Aviators to the playoffs in his senior year. If you guys want more information, this is all coming to us from his bio at Oklahoma. So thank you to the Sooners for the little assist there post-holidays. But this guy's got potential, right? He chose Oklahoma over other schools like Northwestern, Syracuse, like had some offers from other big-time programs like Northwestern, Big Ten school, and Syracuse, a good ACC school as well. So this is not a guy who was like, this was his only good offer. And anytime you still are getting offers in the SEC and an opportunity, that's encouraging. And Jason Beck obviously identified his skill set, felt like he'd be a good fit at Utah. And I trust Jason Beck so far. Until someone gives you a reason not to trust them, you trust them. That doesn't mean I trust them in terms of like, okay, this is the next starter for Utah who's going to carry them on a dynasty. No. I'm willing to trust and say, okay, this guy has the potential to be good. I trust that Devin Dampier is going to be good for Utah because he was good with Jason Beck and showed enough at the G5 level that he's ready to compete at the P4 level. Both Beck and Dampier did that. So Dampier's the Utah's quarterback, right? And then whether it's Zurbrugg as well as Wilson, that's a lot of guys in the room with potential to be good. Wilson, the former 4-star, Zurbrugg, the former 3-star. So I'm excited about the potential he has. I still think I want to talk about this at the end. I know it's not Christmas anymore, but I thought we could do a little bit of a transfer portal wish list. And I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts too. Like, what do you still want to see Utah at? Because they've added a lot of guys now. There's been a lot of players who have come in for Utah. It's not 20 quite yet, but it's over 10 for sure that Utah's at. I think it might even be close to 15 now. So we're starting to see the portal wind down a little bit. There will still be a couple big splash and major additions, but I don't know if we're going to see Utah add another 10 guys. They might. I can't predict anything in the portal, as I'm sure none of you can with all the craziness that is going on right now. But I do think we're starting to see it wind down. So let me know in the comments what you want to see Utah continue to add. But one of my things I still want to see Utah is a veteran quarterback. I still think they need to find a veteran. I like what they're doing. I think they're making good strides and getting they're building their quarterback room out, right? Because they lost. They lost and got Wilson back. Rose is still in the portal. Be shocked if he comes back at this point, just based on how many guys are in this quarterback room. Does he really want to fight to be back up again? Then you also lose a guy like Sam Heward transferred out. Luke Patari graduated. We'll wait and see on Cam Rising. I have a hard time seeing Cam Rising coming back right now. I mean, the more Utah moves, Utah makes it quarterback. And would Dampier really commit? And this is not inside information. It's just like, if you were Devin Dampier, would you commit knowing like, oh, this program legend might also return? I don't see that. So that's where we'll see how that whole scenario winds down. But Zurbrugg is a guy who's got exceptional potential. I'm excited to see what he can do in 2025. If we get to see him, if he wins the backup job, we'll be optimistic. But if I have it my way, Utah still go find a veteran backup who has experience. That's not easy to land. It's definitely not. But Wilson had rough experience last year, so don't feel great if he wins the backup job, obviously. And there's a chance he can improve. And as I talked about a lot on the show, right? Freshman, sophomore year jump is a legit thing. And I think Wilson would be better next year than he was this year with all the learning and experience that he got. But Zurbrugg is a guy that doesn't have that experience at the college level, so it could be rough. But eventually, I believe in his potential. So I do like this addition overall to Utah's roster. Now, thankfully, this wasn't the only addition Utah made recently, too. They added a Big Ten transfer. They added not one wide receiver who has experience with Jason Beck, but they also added a guy I think could be a number one wide receiver. And those of you who are fans of not just Utah football, but college football or just football in general that's played in the state of Utah, you're going to know exactly who I'm talking about. So I want to continue to talk about the major additions and players. And Utah's wide receiver one, that's right, I think they picked him up this week. The number one wide receiver who's going to lead Utah in receiving yards, tight end, wide receiver regardless. I think Utah added him in the last few days. I want to tell you exactly who I'm talking about in one moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for. Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Rocket Money has been fantastic for me because I think, as you guys can all relate to, life gets so busy and crazy. It's easy to forget, like, oh yeah, I wanted such and such streaming service to watch this show or to use this product. And then, oh wait, I completely forgot I was still paying for it and I don't use it anymore. That's where Rocket Money comes in to remind you, give you that little nudge. Hey, you're still paying for this and you don't want to be. And that's what I like about Rocket Money. So you can cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. rocketmoney.com/locked-on to start saving now. All right, keeping it rolling. I had quite the tease as we went to our little ad break there. Quick talk about Utah's wide receiver one. And who am I talking about? I believe that Otto is Utah's wide receiver one in 2025. Who am I talking about? I am talking about the Utah State receiver from a season ago. Yes, he was third on the Aggies roster in terms of receiving yards, but I believe his potential is even higher. And based on the receivers who are on this roster at this exact moment, which we're not going to have time to get to him today, but Tayshawn Lyons is still on Utah's roster. The portal is just insanity. enters the portal, and then like 2 hours later comes back to Utah. Just make it make sense. I mean, just wild stuff. But excited he's back. I'm really high on Lyons. I think he could be a really good, this former 4-star recruit we're talking about. So excited to see what he can do in Jason Beck's new look offense too. But getting back to Tia, last year with the Aggies, 44 receptions, 434 yards, 7 touchdown, average 9 yards per catch, 6'4", 220 pounds. I'll say it again, 6'4". I like that. I like a tall receiver. That's something that tall receivers produced a lot at Utah, right? The Devon Vele's, Dorian Singer wasn't the biggest, but an experienced receiver produced, right? But a junior, so he does have that experience too. When you look at his production, he popped against Utah. He had 5 catches for 78 yards against Utah, 15 yards per catch. Honestly, with how good he was against Utah, that's what surprised me about him only having 434 yards. And I think there's something important to remember when we look at a receiving yardage, right? Like receiving yards can be used to generate excitement about guys, but it's not the end all be all, right? When you're talking about a player's receiving yards like T, especially receiver, what is a receiver so dependent on? Quarterback play. I like Bryson Barnes, and he was also throwing to Spencer, and he had Spencer Petras, the Iowa QB2. That's not very good quarterback play. Now, is Devin Dampier going to be able to deliver that at the P4 level? We have to wait and see. But Devin Dampier is undoubtedly, he led the 4th best offense in the country, I remind you. He's undoubtedly better than Bryson Barnes and Spencer Petras. So I do believe that Tia, this is going to be a great move for Tia and for Utah. I believe he's a guy who can routinely get over 70 yards receiving. Look what he did in his final game, right? 6 receptions, 81 yards, 3 touchdowns against Colorado State. So talk about playing your best ball late in the season, right? He's not as much of a deep threat, although he can take the top off the defense. Just 2 of his catches on the season were a long of 40-plus yards in games. So he is a more he's a little bit of an everything. He's an outside receiver, but he's your number 1 receiver. Line him up all over the field. He'll make plays over the middle of the field, just like he was doing against Utah. I do believe Jason Beck's offense will make it a priority to get Tia the ball, and I think he can be incredibly productive in this offense. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to be able to do too. And he's no stranger to he faced not just Utah, but he did face New Mexico last year. He played in the 50-45 loss they had against the Lobos. That's right. That's how high scoring that game was there. So Tia has immense potential. Really excited. Love the flashes I saw from him in the game against Utah. I'm definitely excited to see more of him. Right now, the players that are on the roster, my prediction is Tia will lead this team in receiving yards in 2024. When you look at his size, skill set, ability to line up all over the field, the toughness over the middle of the field, this is a dog. Utah got themselves a dog. Tia can lead the team in receiving yards unless they add a major number 1 receiver, which I would still love to see them do. But in the meantime, while we wait for a major number 1 receiver, Utah did add a receiver who's even more familiar with what Jason Beck wants to do in Ryan Davis, who was a Lobos receiver from a season ago, and he finished 2nd on the team in receiving yards. So Utah brings in Davis. What are they getting? He's going to be a grad student this coming season. The 5'11", 176 pounds. So obviously drastic size difference between our guy Tia at 6'4". So this Davis is going to be more of your slot guy, right? This is a guy who had 54 receptions last year, 700, and he had 10 more receptions too than what Tia did. And I do think the part of that too is definitely quarterback play. But I do like what Davis does a lot. 747 yards, 3 touchdowns, averaged 13 yards per catch. Did not get into the end zone as much though. If you look at what he did on the season, just 3 touchdowns. But he's had games where he was incredibly impactful. I mean, look at the game against Colorado State. Apparently that's all these new Utah receivers did was last year they went off against Colorado State, right? 9 receptions, 146 yards. That was the most he had. But he also had 100 yards receiving against Auburn. So producing against an SEC team, I love that. Had 6 catches for 100 yards, 16 yards per catch too. So this is a guy who popped. He ended the season with all of his first 2 games, he started slow. Montana State, just 3 receptions for 21 yards. Shout out Big Sky for holding him down. Then the Arizona game, 3 for 31. After that, every game, he had over 45 yards in all of them, and over 50 yards in all but one of his final 10 games. So yeah, I'm really excited about Davis. And what does he have that is absolutely paramount to passing game success? Chemistry. He was a safety blanket last year for Devin Dampier. And I think that is something that is also incredibly exciting. This is not a crazy deep threat. Look at his final 4 games. His longest reception in each one was under 20 yards. This is going to be a guy who's going to come a few big on 3rd downs. This is Utah's newest slot receiver. But I do believe this will be a starting receiver for Utah. I think his skill set is going to aid himself well. All of a sudden, I'm really starting to like Utah's receiving core now. I think the group that they have here of right now, I said we already got Otto. We got Ryan Davis. I just blanked on the Mississippi State receiver that Utah added, but that's a guy with potential. Speaking of potential, Tayshawn Lyons, former 4-star, Darren Zipper, and Zacharias Williams, both 3-star recruits who produced as freshmen. And I'm excited about their future. That's 6 receivers that I feel confident right now can produce for Utah. How high of a level? That's the question. But you can get a solid receiving core out of that group, maybe even a good receiving core is what Jason Beck's done. I mean, Tia's proven he can produce. Davis has proven he's produced. And then basically you just need 1 or 2 of the other guys on your bench that we have in the potential group to step up and emerge. That's very plausible to me. So I'm excited to see Davis out there. His connection is going to be working the middle of the field in the slot, a crafty route runner. He's going to make some of those tough catches, the contested catches, get a couple key third downs. I think this is going to be a guy that Utah fans are going to like. I do, as I said, think Tia, because he's a little more explosive in nature, even though his game's just more well-rounded. Not an explosive receiver, but more explosive than Davis. I think he's going to be wide receiver 1, but I think Davis is a great chance to do exactly what he did for the Lobos last year, finish second on the team in receiving. I think he can absolutely do that again. Not done with talking about transfer additions. So now from the offensive side of the ball to the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, Utah's offense, abysmal last year, did most of their work in reshaping this roster on the offensive side of the ball. But they did pick up a key transfer portal addition, because one of the things that has not been talked about much as it relates to Utah football is not just as Connor O'Toole's gone, but Van Fillinger's gone too. So what I would argue were Utah's top 2 defensive ends. Logan Fano was right there. If you want to say Logan Fano was 2, maybe you can even argue it was 1. Like, they were very close. I'd probably go Van 1 last year, but a fully healthy Connor O'Toole, I felt like at times was their best pass rusher. So that's where the debate gets in there. Logan Fano was definitely this team's second best pass rusher. I don't think there's a debate about that. His game was more well-rounded than a Van Fillinger, who started really hot, but when the offensive lineman kind of got stronger and better, and maybe he was battling an injury, but he didn't pop as much as a pass rusher. So Utah, they need to replace a defensive end, because yes, they still have John Henry Daly and Paul Fitzgerald. Those are 2 guys I'm excited to see how they emerge with this team this year, but I'd like them to add someone else. And they did that in a Big Ten guy in Lance Holtzclaw. That's right, Holtzclaw. What an awesome last name. He's going to be a junior this coming year, but he at least redshirted 1, if not both of his seasons, because both years he played in, I think he did redshirt last year because he only played in 4 games last year. He's spent 2 years with the Huskies, so finished runner-up and then stuck around for a year. 6'3", 224 pounds. He's had 1 sack in each of his 2 years. He's a guy that showed a little bit of bend. One of his sacks was against Cam Moore too. So obviously in a huge game in 2023 in the Apple Cup, he was able to produce a little bit there. So this is a guy I'm excited about. He has potential. I think he's got a really good chance to be the starting defensive end opposite Logan Fano, with Fitzgerald and John Henry Daly very much in the running to produce too. Comes over from Maine, so a long way away from home, but was able to still play a little bit for the Huskies. And I think he's going to be playing a lot more in Salt Lake City. His physical profile and potential are immense. The little bit I got to see of him, because there's not much available with a lot of these transfer portal guys, it's so hard to find film on them. But what you do see from him, he has flashes of bend and impressive athleticism, and the strength and the physical frame profile is there. Lewis Powell, Luther Ellis, really good defensive line coaches. I think they will work with Lance. And once again, right now, I'm going to go him to be the starting defensive end opposite Logan Fano. We'll see how it all goes in spring ball. Fitzgerald and Henry Daly have been in the system longer, so they might know things a little bit better. But I'm excited about the defensive end depth that Utah now has. I think they have 4 legit defensive ends, what I expect to grow into them. Defensive tackle, that is a different story after losing Tamu Vasa. Hopefully the guys we hope and think are going to come back with all these weird eligibility rules are for sure going to return. We'll find that out soon. Would still like to see Utah add a defensive tackle in the portal, but either way, Holtzclaw, really excited to be saying his name. Big get for Utah from the Huskies. From everything I've seen, great dude as well as great player as well as great person from what I've noticed so far. Or potential, sorry. Cannot throw a great player around like that. Potential to be a great player. Seems like a great person. Excited to see him. Seems like it's going to be a good fit at Utah. That's going to do it for the recent transfer ads. We'll be covering a lot more transfer stuff all week, but speaking of transfer stuff, I want to talk about my transfer portal wish list. Yes, Christmas just passed, but I'm still feeling greedy and want Utah to add a few more things in the transfer portal that they did not get that were on my Christmas wish list for Utah's portal additions. I'm going to be telling you about which portal additions I want to see the team still make as we have the last few days of 2024 in one moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's thrilling. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for which player will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more features available on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You can just visit FanDuel.com today and join. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. You can make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Bowl season rolls on. Yesterday delivered some incredible games. I mean, Toledo, Pitt, my word. And we got even more games coming up today. Got some of the biggest bowl games of the season on Saturday. That's not all we have on Saturday. We got 3 NFL games. Sunday's NFL action rolls on. I am a massive Minnesota Vikings fan, so I got my eye on their bout with the Packers. Going to see which team ends up on top in that one. Massive playoff implications on the line too. How about we got the Rams and the Cardinals. If the Rams win, then they can knock the Seahawks out. And I think the Rams get that division. So there's a lot going on. NBA, NHL, college basketball too, all in full swing. So make sure you guys head over to FanDuel Sportsbook today to get in on the latest action. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, rounding out today's episode of Locked On Utes. As I mentioned, I am still feeling greedy. I had a fantastic Christmas. Love spending time with my family, friends. Hope you all did as well. But I'm sure you guys didn't get everything you wanted on your Christmas list. Utah did not get everything I want them to get on my Christmas wish list for Utah, some of which I'm sure had to overlap with what the team want. At least that's what I'm going to tell myself. Okay, so what do I still want to see Utah at? And I'd love to hear from you guys in below. Number one, I want to see them at. I think it's going to be tough at this point in the portal, but I'd still love to see them do it. They found a way to do it last year in a Sam Heward. He just was never able to get healthy and I don't even know what happened there. Anyways, veteran quarterback. Zurbrugg got a chance to be a really good backup. Wilson had a rough first year. Sophomore leap factored in. Maybe he can be a good backup. I won't feel good about either of those options based on what I've seen from Wilson and haven't seen in college experience from Zurbrugg. So I want a veteran. Please, Utah, try and find a veteran backup. Whether that's going back and getting a Bryson Barnes from a Utah State. I don't think he's in the portal. And maybe he wants to stay there and try to start another year. Totally get that. But I want a starter who has played substantial college football games. Heck, with the new JUCO rule, go find one of these JUCO guys who would be down to come over, and maybe they have 2 years left. So they can use a red shirt 1 year, and then they can transfer after if they don't play. But find a backup, a veteran backup. Got to do it, Utah, with how much talent is going to be on this Utah roster. And it's happened for the last 2 years. When your starting quarterback gets hurt, your season goes in the tank. Find a way where that's not the case in 2025. Got to find a veteran quarterback in order to do that, I think. So, veteran quarterback 1. Number 2, it's still defensive tackle for me. I know Utah has a history of good defensive tackle play, and they recruit and develop the position very well. That does not take away from the fact that their top 3 top 3 of 4. Aliki Vaimahi may be coming back, seeing conflicting reports there. But either way, 3 of their top 4 defensive tackles, Junior Tafuna, Keanu Tanavasa, Samote Pepa, they are not on Utah football's roster anymore. So right now, we are hoping Vaimahi comes back. We are hoping David Fotu has more eligibility. And Fotu barely played amongst that rotation last year, even though I thought he did good things against Florida, or just in that 23 season when given the opportunity. And then you get Dallas Vailaki too. So that's 3 guys. I liked what they showed. Only Vaimahi do I probably feel good about being a starter right now, but you could still use another difference maker there. So I want to see Utah add another defensive tackle and an impact one in the transfer portal. With Utah's history of elite defensive tackle play, I feel like Leki Fotu, John Penasini, now Junior Tafuna, they have a history of helping guys. I just forgot the guy who was on the team who got signed to the Packers practice squad too. So they have a history of developing this position well. I'd love to see them add a veteran here, and especially a veteran pass rusher on the interior. That's something this team lost in Tanuvasa, was their best interior pass rusher. I know he didn't light up the scoreboard with sacks, excuse my English, but he was effective at getting in the backfield. He demanded double teams with his hand quickness and athleticism. Need to replace him still. Maybe Dallas can. I'd feel better about them adding a veteran. I was on my soapbox about this same thing with wanting Utah to add an offensive lineman last year. And I believe this offensive line would have been better if they did, just like Even though they have guys they felt good about, I wanted to see them add a veteran. I hope they do that with the D-line. And now, as a obvious tease, I'm going to the offensive line. Adding an interior offensive line, I think, would be key. Utah has all 5 starters back. Utah's offensive line still struggled at times to run the ball. Part of that was a packed box because of bad quarterback play? Absolutely. Part of that was also guys not executing. I would love to see them bring in a veteran to compete for one of those 2 spots. At worst, iron sharpens iron, and you get the same 5 out there. Or he's performing better than one of those other guys, and he wins the starting spot. I think there is potential with Matt Garcia. Keith Olson showed good things late in the season. Maybe they'll just win the job outright. Totally possible. Like Mokafisi won the job back in 22 and ended up starting at left guard, and then they moved to Tawa out to right tackle. Shout outs to Tawa for playing in the NFL, by the way. Been fun to see him out there. Not fun to watch that Thursday night football game, but still happy to see him playing in the NFL for the Seattle Seahawks. So keeping it rolling with this, though, adding an interior offensive lineman is big. Utah set of tackles. If they roll out with the same 5 offensive linemen next year, they can win the Big 12 with that group. But it definitely could be one of the biggest reasons they do not if they don't make changes or at least try to upgrade it there. Keeping it rolling, wide receiver 1. I think Utah has a good wide receiver 1 in Otto. I think he's going to make a big leap playing with a quarterback the level of Devin Dampier, but I'd still love to see this team find their wide receiver 1. Omega, the receiver thereafter from Charlotte, he found a new home, I believe, Arkansas. So you're still searching for your top receiver. Would love to see Utah at a true wide receiver 1 if they can. And also a linebacker. You lose Corene Reed. You lose Sione Fotu. So right now we got Lander Barton, we think. Haven't made any announcements about NFL draft based on how he performed this year. I don't think he would be a top NFL draft pick. Comes back and has the year we all know and expect him to be capable of. He can't be that. So I think he should come back, and I think he will. Jonathan Hall's in there. And then Leavani Dumoudi's coming off that injury, but he hasn't played football in a while. And you got some fun freshmen coming in, Cyrus Polu and mad at myself, blanking on the other linebacker's name, who I do think, Christian Thatcher. Thatcher got a chance to be a really good player, right? That's a good group. Would love to see them add another veteran. So if they could find another veteran that they trust, and Colton Swan's done a good job in the past of identifying, like a Leavani Dumouni really helped this team out in 2023. Can you try to find another veteran that you'd feel good about? Or even if he doesn't play this year, just adding some depth and setting it up for the future. So those are the positions I think Utah needs to still add in the transfer portal. I believe with what they have right now, they can still win the Big 12. Like there's a potential if Utah doesn't make any other additions, they can win the Big 12. And I don't want to hear any crap about that's unrealistic when I just watched Arizona State go from worst to first in this conference. I'm just saying it's possible for Utah to do it. But if you want to set yourself up better for success, still have more work to do. And this team, even though I said I think they could win the Big 12 with what they have, they're not done adding players. So Utah's going to add some more talent, and I'm excited to see what this puzzle looks like that is the Utah football 2025 roster when it is completed. We'll get our first look at spring ball, and the season's going to be there before we even know it. But that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes. Thank you, all of you who listened this week. We had a Christmas episode that performed very well. I didn't know how that Christmas episode was going to perform. So thank you for all you guys who tuned in for that. Love making this show and appreciate all of you for supporting it. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back next week talking more of the craziness that's going on in the portal. Talk about what Devin Dampier is going to bring this offense, some Big 12 thoughts, some big picture Big 12 thoughts, as well as something I want to do. So that's all coming next week. Hope you all have a great final weekend of 2024. Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying that either, but that's where we are. So thank you again for making Locked On Utes your first listen every day. Check out Locked On Big 12 Squad, Locked On College Football. We'll get you geared up for the playoff games coming up too, and we'll be back with you next week. Have a great weekend, everyone.